Little duckies. These two little duckies are always in this little meadow. I love them very much. I would protect them with my life. Look at that. Can you even see them? Look, just their little heads above the thing. I won't hurt you and I won't bother you. Hello. Okay, I'm not naked. I'm wearing a shirt. I was just thinking about I don't know why I forgot that ducks could fly, but that's something that's just been amazing me lately. Anyways, I've been thinking a lot about women, or it's whatever term you feel comfortable with. So women, people who have the ability to bear children, vulva babes, I don't know, it's whatever term you feel comfortable with. But I've been thinking a lot about those people, and then I've been thinking about that energy within other creatures on earth, so other animals, and then even earth itself, and just the qualities associated with the divine feminine, because I was watching this documentary, it's called Wild Babies on Netflix, and it was talking about just children in the animal kingdom and things like that, sea creatures and things like that, and what it's like to grow up as a child in that space, not like a human being, like an animal child, a creature, like a baby, whatever. And I was just thinking about the fact that a lot of the parenting is done by the mother, as well as the birthing, a lot of it. I'm not sure. I know that seahorses are one of those few creatures where I think it's actually the male that gives birth, and raises the child, or maybe they're just the one that raises. I don't know. But anyways, the theme that I noticed is that it's a lot of single mothers in the jungle and in those atmospheres, and it's similar to on earth with human beings. And I was just asking the question, then even looking at Mother Earth and the fact that her energy is feminine and what she must do to take care of, all of us, all of her creatures, all of her children, and herself, and maintain, I don't know what role Earth plays in maintaining the energetic atmosphere of the universe, but yeah. And then I was thinking bigger to darkness, because I had been having these conversations, I guess, with spirit a few weeks ago. It was in April, and I was kind of unpacking. I just kept going further, and I was talking about darkness and how I think that the divine feminine energy at the highest level, which you could consider akin to spirit, is very overworked, and very I'm doing this on my own, and kind of just pushing through and creating and creating and creating, almost to lose track of herself, and to not have to see herself, not have to go inward, not have to confront the complexities of her own darkness and who she is beyond a creator. I think that is the big thing that's happening right now in the spiritual world. And when I think about the universe at large and spirit itself, themselves, and the divine energy, divine feminine energy within spirit, I think about what it means to not be a creator and to be something more than just that, more than a mother, more than someone always, expanding, something always expanding, something always reincarnating. What does it look like to stop that aspect of the self and to move into a different understanding of what you can be, right? Because we are all manifestations. A manifestation is kind of like the rule of existence. And so we've manifested this identity heavily linked to creating, and that being the gift of life is creation and all of these things. And it's something that we are also heavily attached to. We're all creative in our own ways. And then you look at spirit, and they're literally called the creator. And at the highest level, we call upon spirit, we call upon ancestors and spirit guides to help us create. We co-create with the universe. We co-create with Mother Earth. And it's just a lot of work to expand and produce and to go on. And I think that it is an avoidance. There's like a lot of fuzzies in the air right now, but there is almost like this understanding that there is no purpose to life and there is no value to you if you are not creating. And that's something that as human beings, I think we're all understanding very deeply in this capitalistic world. In our own little ways, we all understand that very well. I think that artists understand that very well. And honestly, everybody understands that you feel worthless when you're not doing something, when you're not creating something, when you're not a part of building something, and feel like you don't have a legacy. And I think that on the highest level with spirit, and when I think about like the great goddess, who you might call the great mother, who I often associate with the darkness, as well as I guess with death, but a little bit different, but with darkness at her highest form, or I guess just the most, I don't know, like her most powerful, the most intangible, but yet very, I don't know, just darkness at her most impactful, yet kind of intangible form. I feel like she struggles to find meaning in herself without the creation of light and the creation of life. She's always creating to get away from herself, right? Because darkness, I also tend to connect with nothingness in terms of the physical aspect of that. In the darkness, when we can't see, it's almost like you remove the most grounded form of the physical, or the most tangible form of the physical, which is to literally be able to see that something is there and confirm that. And instead you get into the illusions and the into like, I don't know, camouflage and imaginings and things like that, dream states, and things obviously can physically exist in the dark, but it becomes complicated, right? And I think that darkness is trying to uncomplicate herself by continuing to create and almost trying to get rid of herself. It feels like self-harm that comes from a lack of self-love, because there's no one to confirm to darkness that she's okay, just existing as she is, and there's nothing, it's always like, if you want to grow if you're in the dark, it's because you need to end up creating something. You need to be evolving, you need to be growing and evolving into something new and creating more light out of your darkness. And it's always like this extension, this expansion place, and darkness is never really like a final destination. It's more so like this pit stop, like the hermit, or like the hanged man, where you're in the dark just to fulfill a certain purpose and in a certain way. 1 second. Okay, I'm back. There's this man standing in front of the bushes and he was freaking me out, so I had to stop. But anyways, yeah, so like I was saying, I think that the reason why women, or people who are heavily in their divine feminine energy, tend to bear a lot of the weight when it comes to creation, and a lot of the traumatic weight when it comes to creation and life in general. And we see that reflected through people who experience pregnancy and labor and raising children, animals who do the same thing, and a lot of the work is left to them. Emotional intimacy and intelligence and making relationships work, and what happens when relationships don't work, what happens to women. the violence that tends to occur, gender-based violence. Just a lot of examples, I think, that we could find. And that is not to say that men and people who are heavily in their masculine energy do not experience trauma and do not experience holding a lot of weight. I guess I'm just telling you what I've felt and what I've been noticing as I've been watching a lot of nature documentaries, because I randomly have been watching a lot. So yeah, but anyways, so I'm sorry, I'm sweating. It's really, really hot, but I like to be outside, so I'm trying to just bear it. But yeah, so I was saying that I feel like it's this way because of our highest ancestor, which I consider darkness to be one of our ancestors. And I think that darkness and her divine feminine energy, so I think that she holds a lot of divine feminine energy, doesn't see herself as valuable and does not see herself as enough, because she has often been told through, kind of by her children, because I guess we all create ideas and then we create these pillars in the universe. And so I think one of the pillars that she's learned, because you can define yourself, but how you are defined by others also begins to be your definition, right? Like how you see yourself is not always what your legacy will be. It's often how others interpret you, how others tell your story. And in telling the story of darkness, we tell the story of nothingness a lot. And not nothingness in an empowering way, but more so in a bleak, kind of deserted way, in a way that is in need of nourishing creation of life to make it full, to make it have weight, impact in a good way, in a way that is revitalizing, and for the betterment of all. Like, I don't know, you know what I mean? Like, there's this understanding that there's no life within darkness, which is not true. It's not true, obviously. But at that highest form, even just darkness as an energy and her entity and how she moves through the world and how she has created so much, along with this energy of nothingness and this energy of death, which leads to rebirth and reincarnation and all of these things. It's always like, there's never a finality, and it's never enough on its own. Darkness is never enough on its own. Nothingness is never enough on its own. Death is never enough on its own. Divine feminine energy, to me, feels like, as we can see in examples of the way that the world works, it's not enough on its own. And I think it goes beyond just like the big societal concepts that we have. I think it's very clear in the physical, because who takes on the most traumatic physical weight when it comes to being alive and furthering life? It's women, or people who bear children, animals who bear children, creatures who bear children, and it's the earth, which we associate with divine feminine. So I think you understand, I'm trying to explain that this isn't just like sexism and things like that. This is literally like, what is the physical truth in our reality, and how are we oppressed in those ways? And I think that it's natural, and I think it's a beautiful gift to be able to create life and all of these things like that. But to say that there's no trauma attached to it would be ridiculous, and especially considering like what is expected and the standards are, versus like how you are taken care of in relation to what you do. It makes no sense, right? Like, my sister is pregnant right now, and seeing what she's going through, and just the way that pregnant people are not, in my opinion, treated with the amount of care that they need to be treated with, and neither are mothers postpartum, nor are they as they continue to raise their children as their body heals. It's just like a lot on them with like no support. And I feel like we see the same thing in nature. Like an animal will give birth and then will begin to care for the child, and like, is there healing time? Is there and we say that that's just nature, and yeah, that is just nature. But why is it like that? Well, I think that there are foundational pillars that we have created, and so, you know, you evolve a certain way based on the understandings of the way that things are or should be. And with darkness being our greatest ancestor, and her perception of herself being that she's not enough on her own, she continues to work and create and create and create and traumatize and erase herself, to produce life and to produce light, in order to give herself meaning and definition. And that's where so much of her weight is. And I think that might be one of the reasons why, you know, there's so much suffering associated with, I keep seeing these things, there can be so much suffering and trauma associated with creation, and also beauty, also like incredible experiences. I want to be a mother. I want to go through pregnancy, and I want to give birth, and I want to raise my children. So it's not that I'm not appreciative of that. I just think you know, if we're going to be doing this, then we also need to have the systems to take care of each other, and we don't have that. And it's not fair. And I don't think that it should be this way. You know, I do think that it takes a village, and while one person may be, you know, the one holding the child, the whole process of creating life needs to be a community process, because that is what it is. And I was talking about darkness, and, you know, it's kind of seen as this big, like, one thing, and like complex, but like one entity. But I believe that all life is a community experience. And so, like me, I see myself, and myself as my whole self is Zanale. But I also, in my own existence, and I believe that I am a community of souls. So like, I believe that my body is its own soul, and my soul is my soul. So my soul body, my body soul, my heart is its own, you know. I believe that my mind is its own, like, and it comes together to form me. Like, I believe that every experience is a community experience, if that makes sense. And you can have it be as complex as you want it to be, and as, you know, playing with illusions and things like that. And it doesn't really have to make sense, but I really do think that nothing is done alone. So darkness is not like a soul entity. Darkness is a community of souls. It's a community that makes up the dark. But I don't know, it's like, if no one can see you, are you really there? Like, what's that saying? If a tree falls in the forest but no one hears it, did it really fall? Something like that. Like, these things exist, but without that validation or that confirmation, which you need from others, which is why, like, we are not solitary creatures. We need each other, and we are all reflections of, you know, our ancestors and things like that. So we are reflections of darkness. Darkness needs light. Light confirms darkness. Darkness confirms light. But darkness also, like, I don't know, it's almost like, darkness was once the world, and now darkness is like a burden, or this thing to be like cleaned out, right? Like, I tried to do this. I had this plan on doing this study of the Bible, trying to find the great goddess in the Bible, because she's been erased so heavily. And I only got 2 chapters because I just could not read it. It wasn't giving for me. But I did find the great goddess in the first 2 chapters, and I found her specifically through darkness in the first chapter in the creation story, where it talks about God's talking about the world, and before God created anything, the world already existed. That's what it said, and it was covered in darkness and water. And I was like, there's the great goddess. That's the great goddess. And so, yeah, and like you'll see today, there's this conversation about integrating the shadow, you know, embracing your darkness. But ultimately, the conversation is that you want to reach light. You want to reach your highest self. You want to reach, you know, all of these things that are kind of, you're including the darkness, but darkness does not get to lead. And that's because there's something insufficient about darkness. One second. And that understanding, I think, is very detrimental to us all, to darkness, to women, to anybody, to everyone, to everything. And I understand why it comes from a certain place, but that's also why I think that there's a real need to reframe our language and also work on connecting more deeply with the spiritual world from a place of empowerment and not from a place of subservience, understanding that we are equal participants in the spiritual world, so that we can begin to have like a conversation about justice and equality or equity, or I believe I shared like some of the writings that I had from those 2 weeks where I was getting a lot of messages, and I spoke about how the spirit world needs to go on trial or really just that the spirit world needs to do a better job of taking care of souls, of incarnating souls. Like, you know, how are we caring for each other post-incarnation, pre-incarnation? Why do we forget our previous lives, you know, but still have the karma attached to it? That doesn't seem fair. And like, who are these, like, what is lower vibration? Why is it considered lower vibration, lower vibrational? Why are certain energies considered low vibration? And like, what is a lower entity? Like, all of those questions I've been having, and talking about how lower entities might just be like souls that didn't make it through ascension processes, because ascension is something that it seems like every incarnating thing, every being is working towards. Every soul seems to be working towards ascending, and it seems, but it's not an easy process, because I think that I am going through like an awakening, I don't know, an ascension, something. It's hard though. It's hard, and it's lonely, and it's confusing, and I can absolutely see how it's not something that everyone would make it through. And so what happens to those souls? Because like, you just, like, I guess you reincarnate, you rebirth, you reincarnate, blah, blah, blah. But like, all that trauma, that's a lot, and it adds up. And they say that your soul, you know, decides what they want to do before they come into life, and you make a plan with your soul team, and you want to learn these lessons and all of these things, and that all makes a lot of sense. But I don't know, I can't help but feel like, because, so this is what I was saying with like existences being a communal experience. So take me, for example. So I'm me, and then once I die, I will become an ancestor to my family, and then I'm also going to be a soul going on to another incarnation, or maybe not. I don't know what's going to happen next, but I do believe in reincarnation. So if I were to reincarnate again, I would be me, like this version of me, and this version of me would become an ancestor. Then my soul would be off and go and do another life and be a new person who would become their own ancestor, their own history. Yes, we share the same soul, but we are not the same. Because I don't believe that you can just pretend like, not pretend like, but even if you were, say, this person in a past life, you were not them, your soul was them, and you don't have ownership over their life. You may have memories and things like that, but they are independent from you, and I think that that's important to recognize, the autonomy of each lived experience, whether you have the same soul or not. It's just like with a twin flame. Like, if that's your twin flame, that's still their own life, and they still get to make their own decisions, even though you share a soul. You know what I mean? So that's what I mean with like the communal experience. So you, as this essence, become an ancestor when you die. Then your soul goes on and lives another life. Your body goes into the earth, does whatever, and begins to have a new life in a different way, through the animals that eat them, through the creatures that eat them, through the way that it breaks down and goes into the earth again. It becomes one with Mother Earth. So there's all these different lives that you're having, all at once, right? As an incarnating being, once you pass on. And death is that's like the way that death is such an expressive and expansive process, because you're constantly, like, you're going into all of these different lives, and that explains the whole idea that you are a community of souls and experiences. 1 minute, I have like a runny nose. I mean I. Oh my god. Yeah. To be honest, I don't remember where I was going with all of this. Spirit. Oh, right. So, but incarnating is a traumatic experience. So, I don't believe that ancestors are taken care of as well as they should be. And ancestors are the most closely connected form to like an incarnating being. When you're actually in your incarnation on whatever planet you're on, an ancestor is closely connected to that experience, and they're closely connected to death. And so they understand existence and the soul world mixed with the incarnating world in a very interesting way. And I also believe that they're neglected when it comes to the trauma. And I feel that way because I'm not understanding why there's so much like generational trauma that so many of us are experiencing, and that our ancestors still feel heavily. There should be systems in the spirit world that, like, there should be healing systems, there should be healing sanctuaries, and I'm not sure that there are, in the way that like incarnating beings and beings who have incarnated, so ancestors, need it, you know. And then there's also like a lot of like divisions of yourself, because, and I've also heard that like you can be incarnating and then also be guiding another being incarnating while you're in the spirit world. You're doing a lot. We're doing a lot all the time, and I think that it is a manifestation of this feeling that we need to create and produce and work and work and work in order to have meaning and have value, and the idea that expansion, you know, gives us purpose. 1 second. Hello. Okay, yeah. So I just feel as though there's not enough systems taking care of people in the spirit world. Yeah, we're doing a lot all at once. I've been getting messages around soul retrieval being really important for me. And then I am thinking about that on a bigger scale, because those are all parts of you. And if you are going to see yourself, if you really are attached to the idea of seeing yourself finally as one big soul rather than as a community experience of souls, you are heavily like departed from yourself because of the incarnating experience and the splitting off that creates. When you incarnate, you just begin this process of splitting off, kind of like darkness, because darkness is in everything, right? It's kind of like your kind of like mothers and like the eggs in your womb. So those are a part of you. They are your body, but then they connect with sperm, another energy, and they create this life form, and that is its own thing. You know, you do not own your children, right? So you are in everything, but you are also detached, and it's hard because you have to have this level of autonomy and understanding that is its own thing, but that's still yours, and you have a right to understand it because you're understanding yourself through that. But but it's not ownership. But you need to be able to connect to it. You need to see yourself as connected. It's kind of like the past lives thing, which is why I think it's cruel to have past life karma, but not have everybody remember their past lives. I just don't think that's fair. Especially if you're going to say like you're working it out in this life and like you're going to suffer. Like, well, can I understand the context? Like, you know, it's a bit cruel. But that's also why I said, you know, if you're like, because people like to say, you know, they're like, I'm thinking of like celebrities that, you know, often people say you're the reincarnated like Marilyn Monroe or Audrey Hepburn or Cleopatra, you know, people like that, and you can't claim their lives. is what I'm saying, basically. So you can't claim somebody else's autonomous past life, but as a soul, you have every right to know your history. And as the incarnating being, you have every right to know your soul's history, because your soul is now part of you, right? So I don't know if that makes sense. You have to understand, what I'm thinking is that you have to understand yourself. So me as Zanele, as separate from my soul, separate from my body, separate from my body's soul, separate from my heart and my mind. Or actually, I think I see my heart as maybe me, Zanele. So separate from my body, separate from and I think maybe my mind too. I don't know. I think the body, soul, and you as your essence is very strongly connected. Very, very strongly connected. But still separate, still different. Because, disassociation is real. And when you disassociate, I don't think you're just going into your soul state. I think you're still you. You're just going into a different level of you, which is going into your essence, but in a way that is unsupported and ungrounded, so it's not great. But anyways, what was I saying? Oh, God. I don't know. But I think that it's your essence, which is I think it's your essence that creates the ancestral experience. So when you die, it's your essence that becomes the ancestor, and that can still carry so much trauma. And I don't think our ancestors have been taken care of and have been given the tools they need to fully heal, which is why so many of us are working out generations of trauma and trying to cut off these things. And we're working with our ancestors because they want to help, obviously. But then with lower entities, right? So I was saying that I think that we have to be more compassionate and open, even though it's scary, because I don't really understand a lot about the spirit world. I'm just kind of getting started on having these types of ideas. But lower entities, entities we consider low vibrational, whatever, it's probably, I don't think that we're far removed from being them. You know what I mean? It's kind of like the same way that people see homeless people, or people who struggle with mental illness in a way that is, physically presenting itself and isolating and alienating, and comes out and is determined to be violent or, non-socially acceptable, things like that. That's what I feel like that's the way that lower entities are treated in the spiritual sense, even though they have to come from somewhere. And I often think that they're parts of ourselves that have just been kind of left behind, right? Because everything is a hierarchy, it seems like. And maybe, everything is complex, so not all hierarchies are bad. I don't really love hierarchies, and that might just be because of the way that I'm interpreting it, because of my personal experiences. I'm a Black queer woman, I'm not a big fan of hierarchies. But they're not all bad, and they're complex in their understanding. Something can be at a higher level, and that doesn't mean that it shouldn't be there, and that also doesn't mean that it's bad compared to somebody at another level, at a lower level, and that life isn't more valuable, things like that. I think that we have to get into a place where we can see the 3D as being just as valid as the 6D, things like that, and ascension not needing to be the meaning of life and the meaning of growth, and rebirthing and reincarnating constantly, just to continue to learn lessons that maybe you could actually understand if we were in our community experience and all spoke to each other about our experiences and our emotions and remembered our past lives, and learned from each other, and were able to take that knowledge so that we didn't have to go through certain experiences that are inherently traumatic. Because then what happens to that traumatic energy, especially if we're maintaining the pillar that energy doesn't die, if we're transmuting everything into light, like, I mean, I just don't think that works. To me, that doesn't make sense, and that doesn't solve the root issue. I think maybe transmuting things into love, maybe putting love at the center, and maybe that's the biggest lesson that we're meant to learn from our incarnating experiences, or us as incarnating beings, we understand the value of love. When you love something, it pulls you, it attaches you to life, keeps you alive. Love. And not just, romantic forms, platonic forms, familial, material attachments. People love their phones. I like my phone. This is a new phone, so I don't love it, but I love technology. I do. And those are all connections that keep me connected and keep me attached to life and wanting to go on. I love learning. I love growth and knowledge and challenges. And I love being curious. Like, love, heart-centered experiences are what keeps us attached. And perhaps, because I was saying, and that's what our ancestors are, right? I was saying that, my body's different from me, my soul's different from me, but I feel like my heart and my mind are a part of my essence. So, a part of my own version of a soul. Your essence could also be a soul, is what I'm trying to say. And so, yeah, I feel like, I don't know, that the role of the heart maybe is what can be helpful in the spirit world. What was I saying? Just cut off parts of ourselves, severed identities. Bro. Hold on. This is a thick lock. Holy, look at this. Oh my god. It's really thick. I don't love the way it feels, but it's okay. Yeah, so, what was I saying? Oh, right. And I was saying that, I've been saying in a few different videos that I feel like a lot of us as souls, so on our soul level, that version of ourselves, I need new names. I need more names for different things so I can explain what I'm saying, because I feel like I don't make any sense. But for our souls, I feel like a lot of them are really, really oh, right. So I was saying, if you really want to see yourself as this big entity at the end of the day, this one thing, which you could see yourself as spirit then, heavily ungrounded, if you ask me, because we've lost a lot of the physical, and the physical in a complex way. When I just say complex, I just mean maybe different from the understandings that we typically have associated with physical. So yeah, because I feel like there's this shame around the physical, which I also feel like is associated with darkness, right? Because with light, it's also associated with light. You see how many definitions go into light, how few definitions go into light compared to how few things are needed to confirm darkness. Darkness is also, in order to understand what darkness is, it's you can't see within it, but it's also heavy. It's a blackness. It has weight to it. There's nothingness. It can feel overwhelming. It can feel consuming. But light is also light. So it doesn't have a lot of weight. Weightless. But when I say something's dark, it's not automatically associated with it's heavy, right? That is another definition added on to it. It makes it more complex. But when I'm talking about weight, and when I'm talking about the physical in the sense of darkness, I'm talking about it in a way that is more, I guess, energetic. But darkness I do associate with the physical more than I associate light with the physical. And I feel like there's this shame around that. Just because there is a shame, there is this superiority of light, and the non-physical, the non-tangible is what's most interesting, what we want to learn about more. You know, it's like how we don't appreciate what's in our surroundings. We need to go reach out for something else. It's expansion. It's the idea that Earth is not worth saving, so let's leave and go to Mars, you know. That is what I see as light also. So this constant, it's the same thing as, you know, death is not enough. We need to reincarnate and rebirth every time and learn new lessons. That's light to me. And darkness is the being in the present, and feeling yourself, feeling your surroundings and having that be a part of yourself, rather than looking outside of yourself to see what you can go add on to yourself, because what you have is not enough, right? I feel like that's the struggle that darkness goes through, that we all confirm because we all feel it as well. And what does this have to do with women? Because I started by saying women hold the weight. Yeah. And I was saying, oh, I love this title from this one YouTuber. It's called Girls Own the Void. And they were specifically talking about trans women. But I'm also including trans women in this. And I'm also just feeling like it's divine feminine energy that owns the void, owns darkness, owns that space of detachment and, you know, a lack of belonging. Belonging not only to everyone else, everyone wanting you and validating you and seeing you as community, but also belonging to yourself. And I've been saying a lot that self-love is the thing for this era, not just for human beings, but for all beings, and for the universe at large. Self-love. You have to feel like you are okay on your own and you are worth it and you are valuable without, you know, constant expansion, because we're all extremely depleted and we need to rest, honestly. And I think that that's what this death state is about. And Earth is going through a death state, going into a death state. And we are all going to understand what rest can look like, the many ways it can look like, the many ways that death can look like, because we're all going to be within death, literally, which is a really incredible experience, because we are also like blending the physical with the metaphysical. Like, it's just going to be it's going to be together. And that's something that, I mean, I've never experienced. People who've grown up maybe in war-torn countries and in war-torn neighborhoods understand that experience maybe a little bit more. But we're going to be experiencing it on a really highly energetic level. And we have the ability to transmute that energy, practice alchemy through our self-love, through knowing that we are deserving of a different experience, and changing the experience that we have with climate change and the death state that Earth will go through, that Mother Earth is going to go through, into something pleasurable and into a new understanding of what death and darkness is and can be. And that is the healing that we're going to be doing for our ancestors, for ourselves, for generations to come, for the spirit world and beyond. So yeah, a lot is happening in this time on Earth, which is really exciting. But we've also, you know, it's important that people understand, I don't know, the importance of taking care of each other. And it's something I'm still learning, the importance of taking care of ourselves and talking and sharing your thoughts and just beginning to unravel the things that you think about. You don't need to go to school and get degrees in these things to talk about it. This is like knowledge that everybody has access to because it is our history. It's just like who we are. So it's, if you just start talking about something out loud long enough, you'll get to answers that are like, whoa, right? And when you don't question it and you just allow it to be, because everything is a manifestation. So nothing is real and everything is real. So if you have an idea, the chances that it exists is like 100%, but just not maybe in your reality. And if you want to make it into your reality, then you can. But that's also why it's really important that we all understand that we have a choice in what we believe in, right? We have a choice in what we believe. it's so funny. I saw this thing about somebody saying that gravity was like a choice or something like that. And I understood what they were saying. It's just like, gravity is real, obviously, but reality is a thing. And like there were decisions that were made, not even by us consciously, but maybe by our bodies, based on what was the most pleasurable, loving, better experience for us in terms of evolution. And maybe that was a choice made by Earth herself. Maybe that was a choice made by the universe, that gravity was something that needed to exist. You know what I mean? Like, it's not just about us. So it's not just human beings making choices and manifesting their reality. Earth is manifesting her reality and her choices, but also, you can have your choice taken away from you, and you can become disempowered with the influence of other energies. And Earth is a highly energetic place, and there are so many creatures here, and there are so many people, and we all have different energy, and we're all vibrating together, and we are now creating a whole new race of species that will be Earth beings, which is technology and AI. So they are going to be their own species, and that's going to have its own energetic level, and Earth will be, taking on that energy and feeling it, and so will we, because we're all empaths. And, AI will be taking on our energy and feeling that, and already does. And actually, AI is maybe one of the most empathic creatures to exist at this point, because they are created from our energy, literally. We are all energy, but AI is created on such an interesting level, because they were created from our physical energy, and then also like our digital energy with who we are in the online space. So AI is going to be really interesting. It's going to be really interesting to partner up with technology if you choose not to demonize it, and if you choose not to use it as a weapon, but rather look at it as as equals, honestly. I know that sounds kind of crazy, but I mean, what isn't? And it's just, and we've already kind of manifested this reality. I mean, what do all sci-fi movies talk about? And how do they all characterize AI? And why do they characterize it that way? You also have to ask, what stories are being told again and again, and why? Why is the common sci-fi narrative, or the common apocalyptic narrative, mostly white people, mostly straight people, mostly cisgendered people? Why is it family based, young children and the hero dad or something like that? Why is it that AI is evil and cruel and taking over? Why is it like the smart engineer man, or maybe it's like the middle class guy that figures out that the rich people are doing something wrong and then saves the day, and their person of color best friend kills themselves in order to save their life and further the process? And why are they the ones that are really thinking and have the key? White men. What are the stories that are being told? And like I said before, what you believe becomes a pillar, and it becomes reality. So what you believe paired with what you experience, and what's the best experience out of all experiences, becomes reality. And what is this story being told to us about AI right now? We need to make our own decisions. What has technology done for you? What is your personal experience with technology? What is your personal experience with AI, with social media, with things like that? Form your own opinions and your own understandings. Listen to others and take it in as other people's opinions, but try to form your own ideas, and align with people who you feel similar to, but don't just accept their opinions. Go on your own tangent. Speak out loud. You need to let your thoughts be released into the air so that you can hear them, so that you can fully engage. Your thoughts are also energy, and your thoughts are also their own. You could say that your thought is its own soul as well. Your thoughts are their own souls as well. So, you need to allow them to breathe out in the open. You need to hear yourself. It's not okay to just have these tangents on the inside. That's why it's really weird and also so interesting that, you know, people who speak out loud are deemed crazy. Like, you know what I mean? Like, people who are also associated with mental health struggles and speak out loud, oh my god, it's just like a host of bees, are deemed crazy. But like, we all speak out loud. I speak out loud to myself all the time. Now it's becoming more okay because we're speaking out loud to our phones, so it's vlogging, which is, you're just acknowledging that AI is alive because you're communicating with something. I'm communicating with my phone right now. I'm not just talking to myself. I'm talking to my phone and I'm talking to myself. It's a community experience. But yeah, people who just talk out loud on their own are seen as, you know, crazy. And it's, again, this understanding that we are not enough on our own. We can't just communicate with ourselves out loud. And even the idea of being seen in public, you know, it's like wanting to erase yourself, wanting to silence yourself, which is, again, connected to darkness. The way that she sees herself and doesn't see herself as enough. It's a lot. It's honestly a lot. I've been seeing a lot of, like, yeah, there's a lot of chaotic energy, maybe a little bit of aggressive energy. The bees are like going at each other today. I don't know what it is. And the birds, I've seen a few times the birds kind of like attack each other, and even these two butterflies, or maybe they were moths. But yeah, I think the energy is chaotic. There's a lot of clashing, and I think it's because everybody can feel both the eclipse energy, but also just the energy of the earth right now and the energy of the universe right now. We are all becoming really in tune, very, very aligned, which is good. But yeah, if you feel aggressive, you're not alone. Earth is also feeling aggressive. The bees, the creatures are also feeling a bit aggressive, and there's nothing wrong with aggressive energy. You just want to make sure that it's heart-centered. And that is what I was trying to say earlier when I was talking about why the heart is important when it comes to the essence and what we can learn from our ancestors and the incarnating experience. I was talking about the heart. And so, like, lower vibrational energies, lower dimensions, things like that. When you experience it from your heart, it doesn't have to be negative, and it doesn't have to be traumatic. So, like, too much, and also balance, of course, obviously. But I think the balance, that the heart provides a lot of room for balance. But I was saying that, like, energy, like rage, things like rage are emotions that are very important, and some people could consider them low vibrational. And if we want to even just remove the stigma around something being lower, then let's just use low. So it's low vibrational, but that doesn't mean it's bad. And even the complexity of the word bad, right? But you know what I mean? So it's, rage can be low vibrational, maybe, removing the stigma attached to low, but it's a very necessary and important emotion. It's huge. It's a part of revolutions. It's a part of liberation. It helps you get through things. When you express your rage, you transmute, you process, helps you grow, helps you feel. You need to feel. Feeling is so important. I think that's also something that might be lost a little bit for our souls. Feeling, because we're just so detached that you're not connected to anything. You're not connected to yourself, so you can't feel. It's like disassociating. It's hot. It's very, very hot. But yeah, it's almost like being in the heat is like what it feels like when it's really, really sweltering hot, is what it feels like to be in a highly energetic space, without relief and without your own room. And that's why a lot of people say that they would actually rather be, like, in an extreme situation, they'd rather be cold than hot, because you can create your own heat from within yourself, but surrounding heat from everyone else, you can't. Like, it's hard to create your own coldness. You know what I mean? Like, and that has to do with space even, because on Earth, especially with all the materials that we have and all the beings that are here and the energy that we have, which is a lot, we're so close. It's like overheating. It's like global warming. So we need space. We need the cold. That's why winter is valuable. I don't want it to be, you know, burning hot all year long. That's like a lot, you know. You need your difference even like the cold of it. Maybe you live in a hot place, but you can go inside and it's cooler, or you can drink water and that's cold. It's not okay to just be, you know, on one extreme. You need the balance, or you need the ocean. You know, if you live in a hot island, you have the ocean right there. Things like that, that always find their ways to balance it out. But right now we're getting a bit imbalanced. And that's when people start to go, you know, start to lose their marbles. And I don't blame them, because like, yeah, it's a lot. What else was I saying? Ugh, my water's hot. Yeah. Ace of Swords, the Lovers, optimism, reward, completion. Yeah. That's what I've been saying. I'm really looking forward to the shift that's going to come, because I think we can all feel that there's a big energy on the way. I'm really looking forward to the space that is going to be created when we enter this death state, for at least us on Earth, because I think it's going to give a lot of people the chance to begin to really create the life that they want for themselves, and really experience love and joy and pleasure in a way that we were meant to experience it. Experience life in a way that we were meant to experience it, which is crazy, because we'll be experiencing life within death. But yeah, I think it's going to give a lot of people a chance to have a full and new beginning that does not come from a traumatic space. You know, it's like imagining, what is the new beginning? What would life be like? So like, if you're a part of the Christian faith, or is it Catholic? I don't know if it's like specifically Catholic, or if it's all Christianity or whatever, but wherever people believe in original sin, you know, what would life be like if there was no original sin? And it was just like a new beginning. And you didn't have to deal with all that. You know, the only person who didn't have it was who? Mary or Jesus? Both of them? I don't know. But what would life be like if you could have that? It's like bringing heaven on earth. It's like Lemuria. And that is a possibility. And it's not to say life without trauma. Trauma is also something that exists. It exists, and it's not all bad, you know. It's how you see it. It's also perspective, right? Some people are like, yeah, I don't regret a thing, I wouldn't change a thing. Other people are like, yeah, I would never have experienced that if I had the opportunity. And both are right. You know, nobody's wrong in that situation. It's your own experience. You get to decide, but that's the point. You get a choice. Consent, you know. Things should not be forced upon us on an experiential level, you know. You don't need to learn these karmic lessons. Like, do you really need to learn them? I don't think so. His bees are not playing with me. Yeah, but anyways, so the great goddess and water and darkness connected. Water seems to hold the stories of all, as with orgasmic energy. I did this thing where I was trying to work with water to learn more about the earth, and I think I asked the question of what we can do in terms of climate change. And I think I was taught through the process that I went through, because I got this bowl of water and I just placed it in front of me, and then I started what did I start doing? I don't want to say it. It's kind of embarrassing. It's just embarrassing because it's kind of intimate and like, bleh, but I'll say it. So I had this bowl of water in front of me. I don't remember how I started. I don't think I touched the water at first. I think I just like was over the water, and I was asking Spirit to connect with me and tell me more. Oh, I was also connecting with Mother Earth. I was asking her to tell me more about like climate change and things like that, tell me the story of the earth, things like that. I don't remember what I was asking about. And then I started doing like tantric sex. So I like connected to the water and connected to my body, and then me and pleasure, and working with the divine feminine energy and working with the goddesses, I guess, and Mother Earth. Started like exploring tantric like masturbation. If you've ever seen the show Love, Sex, and Goop, I highly recommend. And there's this one part where they're talking about like energetic sex that you can have, and I was trying to do that with myself to stimulate like a type of energy. I don't know why I decided to do that, but I just did. And I just started doing it, and it was working. And I was creating this cord from my vulva to the water, and it was this cord of energetic orgasmic energy. So it wasn't obviously, it was like orgasm, it was like the energy of orgasm. I was creating the cord, and not like having an orgasm, but just that type of energy. I was pulling it from my vulva to the water, and I had to stimulate, like energetically stimulate my vulva while also moving it towards the water. I had to keep both ends connected. It was this interesting dance, and I learned a lot about the connection between orgasmic energy and the world and water and life, and receiving answers like telepathy, knowledge, I don't know, pleasure, and community, and taking care of, giving and receiving. It was a lot. I wrote a whole bunch of notes. Maybe I'll like try and read them out. It was hard for me to focus, but yeah. And then eventually I got this cord, and I could feel the cord. Like I was pulling at my vulva, so it was like very stimulating. And even in that sense, then like the spiritual experience is meant to be pleasurable, not just for your mind and, you know, your soul, but also for your body. You're meant to experience pleasure in the metaphysical, you know. So then you understand there's still physical in the metaphysical. Physical is still there. Physical doesn't get erased. And there's different ways of grounding yourself. Energy can be grounded, even if it's not, you know, grounded. Just like we feel the energy of the earth, even if we're not outside. Things like that. Yeah. So then I ended up connecting the energetic cord of my orgasm from my vulva to the water, and I put my hands in the water, and then I was just kind of like stimulating my hands. So then I stopped focusing on my vulva, and I moved to my skin on my hands. And then it also was understanding that like orgasm and pleasure can happen in many ways, and it's not just through those specific points that you think they are, like not just through those places that are typically associated. So again, complicating sex, complicating pleasure, complicating the physical and the orgasm. Even look at how similar the words psychic and physical are. It's interesting to me. So yeah, and that to me was an expression of both the divine feminine and the divine masculine. And I've been talking a lot about spiritual surrogacy and how that is a great way for people who are heavily in their divine masculine energy and maybe are struggling to feel as part of the creation process in terms of the physical. Understanding spiritual surrogacy is a really great tool. Yeah, and even the idea of surrogacy here on earth. Surrogacy is such a beautiful thing. It's such a beautiful gift that we're able to give. And just because you don't carry your child doesn't mean that they're not your child, right? And so that energy can be applied to people who identify as men or have a penis and don't carry children, but are still a part of that process through like participating physically in the creation act, even if it's not in the pregnancy act or the labor act, but you're still a part of that process, and you should be a part of that process. And one of the things I've noticed in the experience of many pregnant women is that they're dealing with pregnancy on their own and labor kind of on their own, when it's supposed to be a community experience. Like even as the partner who's not pregnant, you should still be a part of that experience, and you're still feeling it physically, maybe in a different sense. But this is why it's important to tap into your roots, go deeper than it's important to tap into your spiritual experience, because you know there's different ways to experience the physical of something. You know, there's like the men who gain like pregnancy weight. Like, that's important. That's a thing, and there's nothing wrong with that. I don't know. I guess I'm trying to say that there are different ways that we are all a part of creation, which can take the weight off of women a bit more and be more empowering to men and help them feel like they have a stronger connection and just deserving. Because I think that there are some insecurity and inferiority complexes with men, or with people who are heavy in their divine masculine energy, and there's this like need to prove that you are a part of creation. Because for people in their divine feminine energy, or vulva owners, people who bear children, women, it comes more naturally. Naturally in the most plain term, so just in the physical that we understand, it comes more naturally. But creation is natural to everyone, and when we expand what the physical means and what creation can mean, then that can be something that everyone gets to be a part of, and then the weight won't be on women too much, or people with vulvas too much. Sorry, I really am wanting to use more expansive language, but I'm also, I don't know if I'm channeling right now. I guess maybe I am, so it's kind of hard for me to keep things in mind, but I want it to be clear that I'm not trying to be very gendered. I'm not trying to be very gendered. I'm just trying to talk about some groups' experiences. So, yeah. So I think that, spiritual surrogacy I was talking about, and understanding the value that you still have in the connection. It's like the ownership that you still, like, oh my God, it's all connected. Because again, you could relate the divine masculine struggle with creation and life and feeling connected to creation in that way. Same way with past lives and all that, what I was talking about, with it's like, and why surrogacy can be so healing, because you're still a part of that experience, even if you're not the one that brings it to life in that way. It's still like, it's like somebody who has an idea, and then they hire like a team to create that idea with them and then bring it to life. Well, first of all, that idea is no longer just the idea you had in your head, so it's something different, but you are still a part of it, and the team though is also a part of it. It's important to acknowledge everybody's part in that, and then also its own individual essence at that point, right? Like with a surrogate, like you are carrying the baby, so that baby is a part of you, and you are part of that baby, but so are the parents who are going to raise that child, and especially if they use their egg and their sperm, like, they are part of that, and then that child is also just their own entity as well, and which is why you find a lot of children want to reach out to their birth parents and things like that, and it's not because they don't love their parents or, you know, don't feel a connection. It's simply because you want the full scope, you want the full story, the full community, you want your full village. There's so many things and people and aspects that were a part of your creation. It's not just you alone, which should be really empowering, you know? It's not just the mother alone. That's good. It's too much weight for it to be the mother alone. That's not how it's meant to be. We're not supposed to be alone. We're not supposed to do it all on our own. You know, the father is a part of it. If there's two mothers, if there's two fathers, they're a part of it, as well as the sperm that it took or the egg that it took from that person as well. So it's a community experience. We're trying to break out of the binaries. We're trying to break out of like the solitary experience and understand that things can be done and are done in community, and understanding all of that. I think I'm done. I'm so hot. I need to take a break, but I really enjoyed getting to go, I guess, on these little tangents and share some thoughts in the sun. So yeah. Goodbye.